Good morning. My name is Richa Wilson, and on behalf of the Weber County Heritage Foundation, I welcome you in this 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 2011, Veterans Day. Originally known as Armistice Day, November 11th is the date Germany and the Allied forces ceased hostilities on Europe's Western Front in 1918. Congress designated it a federal holiday in 1938 as Hitler's Germany began to pose a threat. In 1954, recognizing the sacrifice of our military during World War II and the Korean War, President Eisenhower signed legislation changing the holiday's name to Veterans Day. Since then, it has served as a day for us to remember and honor all of our veterans. Today, we gather to rededicate Ogden's monument to her World War I veterans, the Gold Star Drive. Its name derives from a custom during that war. Households with a family member serving in the military exhibited a flag with a blue star. If that loved one was lost, the blue star which was changed to a gold star. Women from Ogden's Service Star Legion felt compelled to memorialize those Weber County servicemen who lost their lives. They chose to plant a tree and install a plaque for each at the Ogden Cemetery. After a significant fundraising campaign, they dedicated the memorial in 1921. It included 2 large plaques, which are located on each side of you, and cannon, now missing, at the cemetery's entrance and planters in the Parkway Strip. Its most noticeable feature, however, is the drive itself. Lined with individual bronze plaques and originally with 52 Norway maples, it became a living memorial thanks to the stewardship of Boy Scout Troop 18. In the 90 years since the original dedication, the Gold Star Drive and its monuments have decayed and suffered damage. Additionally, more names of Weber County service members who died during World War I were discovered. The Weber County Heritage Foundation and the Golden Hours Senior Center veterans, with the generous help of numerous partners and donors, have restored the monuments and added names of service members previously unrecognized. Today, we honor the sacrifice of our World War I veterans and of all of those who have served and continue to serve our nation. We have not forgotten. We will not forget.
Almighty God of peace, as we at this hour remember how a great war came to an end exactly 93 years ago, we pray that all wars will cease. As we stand here in this place, reminded of the tragedy and the casualties of war, we pray for the protection of those from all nations who live in harm's way. As we seek to honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, we ask that the price for that freedom be impressed upon us, and that the willingness to do our part in preserving it be ours. And as we begin a very special ceremony on this Remembrance Day, we give thanks for our country's many blessings and plead that you continue, gracious God, to bless America, land that we love. Amen.
In the Flanders region of Belgium, about 90 years ago, at the end of World War I, Dr. John McCrae stood over the grave of his best friend. And then as he looked out over his friend's grave and the graves of many others in this area of Flanders, he saw the beautiful poppies stretching almost as far as the eye could see. And he was inspired to write this poem. In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved. And now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields. And now would you join me in welcoming our mayor, the Honorable Matthew Godfrey, wherever you are.
It's a great honor to be here today with my last Veterans Day as mayor. I'm very privileged to be here at the cemetery and appreciate those who have put up these plaques. Thank you to the Weber Heritage Foundation and the many volunteers who came together to create this memorial. We're very grateful for that. I suppose I am here on behalf of the 83,000 people in the great community of Ogden. And I feel a responsibility to thank on our behalf those who have served in so many wars. And I'm grateful that we're recognizing World War I. We often don't talk about that war today, and it's not portrayed in movies like the other wars are so frequently, and I think we have a poor understanding of what occurred in that war. But it was a horrific war. What the soldiers endured there was tremendous. It's painful to read and gain understanding of what our soldiers and others suffered during that great battle. And I think that's true for all the wars. They're often glorified in the versions that we see. But as you read the tales and talk to those who had the experiences, you get a very different understanding of what occurred. I think we need to be grateful not only for the sacrifices that they made on the field for the victory that was at hand that day, but it's impossible for us to know how many victories that secured unknown, meaning how many wars across this world didn't occur because of the great valor of our servicemen, because of the reputation of the United States military. How many people decided not to engage and decided another measures, hopefully diplomatic means of resolving disputes? Certainly there were many, and so we're grateful to those who sacrificed not only for the victory of the day, but to make lands peaceful and help people not just in this country not go to war, but help people across the world not go to war because of the ferocity of our warriors and the valiant valor of our servicemen and the great reputation that our military holds. So I want to thank you all, those that are here in uniform and those that have served our great country. We say it a lot. I hope you understand that we truly mean it, that we are enormously grateful. We look to you with admiration, sometimes guilt. Those that have not served in the military or not served in the war, we look at you and admire you tremendously and feel like maybe we should be doing more. And so we honor you this day and hope you realize that our thoughts and prayers are with you and your families and those that are serving today for the great sacrifice that they are currently making at this very moment all around the world on the behalf of the great American people. So may God bless you all, and may God bless the great city of Ogden and the United States of America. Thank you very much.
For spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee,
Wow, that was wonderful. Thank you. And now it is my pleasure and great honor to introduce our next guest, Colonel Keith Knutson. A graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, Colonel Knutson arrived in 2010 from the Naval Air Station Joint Reserve Base in Fort Worth, Texas. He came to Hill Air Force Base to take care of the 419th Fighter Wing. Before then, he had served on active duty for 7 years and joined the Air Force Reserve in 1992. He is a command pilot with more than 3,600 total hours, including 3,400 hours in the F-16. Colonel Knutson has earned numerous awards and decorations, including the Air Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters, the Aerial Achievement Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal with 3 oak leaf clusters, the Gallant Unit Citation, the Meritorious Unit Award, and the Air Force Outstanding Unit Award with 5 oak leaf clusters. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Keith Knutson.
Well, thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, fellow service members, and most importantly, our veterans. I am honored and humbled to have this opportunity today to say a few words on the topic of preserving freedom and serving the nation. It's certainly fitting that we congregate here today in this place to reflect on the concepts of freedom and service, for there are perhaps no better 2 words to associate with our great nation and the deeds of our veterans and our current service members. World War I ended 93 years ago, and 90 years ago today, then Ogden Mayor Frank Francis presided over the dedication of this unique memorial to those who had served to preserve freedom for not only our nation, but our friends around the world. More importantly, the dedication was to those who had given their final resolve to ensure the end of the war to end all wars. As we stand here today, how do we feel? Do we feel the fear and the tension of the doughboys huddled in the trenches awaiting the attack? Do we feel the loneliness of a soldier in a foxhole as artillery shells rain down upon them? Do we feel the sacrifice of the son, the daughter, the mother, and the father? Do we feel the loss, the tragedy, and the pain? Do we gather simply to remember? Or do we stand ready to act with resolve in support and recognition of not only those who have served, but also for those who continue to defend our great nation? President George Washington offered that the willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war will be directly proportionate to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their country. Certainly there would be many wars to follow the fight for our independence, and President Washington's suggestion would be put to the test of multitude of times as it is today. Of course, World War I was not the war to end all wars. Regrettably, nearly a century has passed, and we continue to be engaged in wars, as President Washington put it, no matter how justified. Preserving freedom through military service, whether at home or abroad, remains perhaps the most visible form of service to our nation, but certainly not the exclusive manner in which we serve our fellow man. In fact, I will submit that gatherings like this are an equally important form of service to those who wear the cloth of our nation in harm's way at this very moment. Today, our nation's soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen are engaged in a multitude of combat campaigns, fighting tyranny around the globe and extending the dream of freedom to those who lack the means to fight for themselves. Today, members of our armed forces are voluntarily sacrificing life and limb for the notion of freedom on soil, sand, and sea well beyond and removed from the friendly environs of places like Ogden, Utah. And I can tell you they do it with remarkable precision, professionalism, and profound dedication. I can also tell you they do it with great trust in their nation. They trust in our elected officials. They trust in their superior officers, trust in their community they so desperately miss as the holidays approach, trust in their loved ones and their families. I can also tell you they do it to honor those that have gone before them. Regrettably, the last surviving American veteran from World War I passed away this last year. Frank Buckles, the last World War I doughboy, lived to the remarkable age of 110 years. He closed the living chapter on the war to end all wars. Yet millions of veterans remain here on earth, reminding all who serve today of the tremendous sacrifice and contributions that has gone before. I can also tell you that the members of our armed forces trust in not being left behind, not being forsaken, and not being forgotten. And this brings me to this gathering today. President John F. Kennedy suggested that as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not simply to just utter words, but to live them. I commend the Weber County Heritage Foundation and all who have lived the effort to express our gratitude to never forget the 60 veterans memorialized here on Gold Star Drive. I offer my sincerest appreciation to the many sponsors and donors who have provided material support for this endeavor. And I salute the men and women who ensure that these heroes from so long ago remain memorialized in a dignified and honorable manner today. I will close by remembering that today we honor those who have gone before, our veterans. Americans that perished on hilltops and beaches, in deserts and on seas, and in skies above unfriendly lands. We celebrate those that surround us today, those that have responded to the call of their nation and who stand amongst us as fellow citizens, worthy of our deepest appreciation and gratitude. Today, our veterans continue to serve as elected officials, teachers, police officers, firefighters, leaders of our churches, and our most trusted neighbors. I ask that you reflect on how important it is that we continue to live by our commitment to support our veterans and current service members with our actions and not simply with just our words. Finally, I wish to express my sincerest appreciation to those who have made this ceremony and rededication a reality. You live your words through admirable deeds. And as was so eloquently shared in the reading of Flanders Field, the torch be yours to hold it high. As a proud member currently serving in our armed forces, I thank you for your continued support. I thank you for this opportunity, and I wish each and every one of you a blessed Veterans Day. Thank you.
Over the last few years, it's been my privilege to serve as the chairman of the service committee in the district and coordinate with many of our city officials in public works and find opportunities where our young men in scouting age can be of service to their community. On February 8, 1910, the Boy Scouts of America was officially established. It was an organization built upon the ideals of teaching youth of America helpful outdoor skills and career skills that would help them throughout life. It was based on principles of service through individual duty to God and country, through a sense of duty to help other people at all times, and through a sense of duty to oneself to keep physically fit, mentally awake, and morally straight. The month after the Scouts were officially organized, the very first Scout troop in Utah was organized. It was organized in Logan, and troops here in Ogden followed. In fact, the heritage that Utah has is the highest in scouting of any other state in the Union. By 1917, when America entered the Great War, the boys who were members of those original Scout troops, who were 12 to 18 years of age at the time when they were first organized, had now reached the ages of 18 to 24. It was these young men who stepped forward as volunteers and served in the armed forces during that great conflict. Members of Troop 18 today who conducted our flag ceremony did so much the same way their predecessors did when Troop 18 conducted the flag ceremony 90 years ago today when these memorials were first dedicated. Following the dedication, Ogden City Mayor Abbott Haywood appointed Charles Clark, Scoutmaster of Troop 18, to be a member of the committee that would help supervise the preservation of these memorials and the care of the cemetery, and particularly Gold Star Drive. Charles Clark served as Scoutmaster throughout World War I on through World War II, and finally stepped down as Scoutmaster but continued service as chairman of the committee into the mid-1950s. The heritage that Troop 18 has and many of the other troops is very rich. It's a part of Ogden. It's a part of us. Over the decades, the Boy Scouts have spent countless volunteer hours here at the cemetery, as well as our parks and ponds, our hiking trails, the senior center, and many other areas in our community, rendering quiet acts of community service. Over the past year, we particularly like to thank Reed Hepler, whose Eagle Scout project was to restore the two Gold Star-shaped planters that you find here at the entrance to Gold Star Drive. We also want to thank Jared Matson, whose Eagle project was to raise the funds and plant the trees to replace those that had died over time, that Gold Star Drive may continue its heritage of a tree and a plaque placed in honor of each of those men who had died. Over the past 100 years since Scouting has been in existence, many other churches, schools, local civic groups and institutions, parent groups, and others have joined in establishing Scout troops throughout the community. They sponsored Cub Packs, troops, varsity teams, venture crews, and explorer posts, so that now ages from 7 years through 18 and even up to 21 still participate in programs where these cherished values are taught. In the coming years, we expect many more young men to follow in their steps of other Scouts as they preserve other memorials here at the cemetery and throughout our city, and continue to preserve that heritage of freedom, that legacy that was won for us by these men and by our other veterans who serve and whom we also honor today. It is also expected that today's Scouts will, like their predecessors, one day step forward and represent their community in various other roles, both in public office and in quiet, silent methods of just simply being good neighbors. We hope that each of them will learn to be good husbands and loving fathers, that they can pass on those values to the next generation, so that Ogden can continue to be a wonderful place to live long after many of us are gone. On behalf of the Boy Scouts of America and the Trapper Trails Council, we thank all of our veterans for your dedicated service. And we'd like to thank each of you for the opportunities that you've given us to serve and to serve our community and to preserve these values of duty to God and country, of duty to help other people at all times and in all places, and to keep oneself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to introduce Jared Matson, who, as I mentioned, for his Eagle project, raised the funds and replanted the trees to replace those who had lost along Gold Star Drive. We've asked Jared to read a poem that was read 90 years ago during the original dedication where these trees were planted. Jared?
I'm going to read to you a poem written by Thomas Curtis Clark. Plant trees. Let there go out upon the breeze this word, that we remember those who for our safety met our foes, who conquering with choking breath and mangled bodies, yes, and death, kept our homes pure and our land free, and for the world won liberty.
Thank you, Jared. That was terrific. I'd like to introduce now, this all has come together really due to many people and many different efforts, but two stand out among, well, there's three or four that stand out, but I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Leonard Barton of Autoleave, who is a wing commander out at the 419th. Lieutenant Colonel.
I'm actually with the 97th Aviation Troop Command, and I'm humbled to address you today, not only as a representative of the men and women in uniform serving in the United States military, but also as just one of the thousands of Autoleave employees in northern Utah whose lives have been touched by the service and sacrifice of the heroic service members whom we honor today. Historically, war memorials were built to commemorate great victories in battle rather than to honor the dead. It was not until the staggering loss of life in the First World War that nations and communities as a whole turned their thoughts to those who had given their last full measure of devotion, defending the lives and liberties of their citizens. Many of you, including my Autoleave colleagues, have volunteered your time and best efforts to ensure the names of these simple markers will live on in our collective memory. It is fitting tribute, then, that we renew today the promise made to those soldiers 90 years ago to help keep before the people the memories of the dead. In my daily work to build products that save lives, in a small way, I feel a kinship with those who laid down their lives to secure for us the sacred rights and obligations that belong to a free people. They truly gave their todays that we might fully appreciate our tomorrows. Words etched in the National World War I Memorial in Kansas City, Missouri, capture the emotions we share today. These have dared bear the torches of sacrifice and service. Their bodies return to dust, but their work liveth for evermore. Let us strive on to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. The appreciation for fallen heroes and a heartfelt hope for a lasting peace is keenly felt here today. May God grant this solemn desire, not just for our generation, but for those past generations who gave their lives to make it so.
With humility, I stand before you today. What an honor, thank you. It wasn't until yesterday that I shared with Bob why this project really came close to my heart. I shared with him yesterday that it was in 1968 when my family moved in to a home 7 blocks from here. My mother still lives on 13th Street. I will tell you today that as an 11-year-old with good friends, lots of enthusiasms, a Swin bike, I knew this cemetery. I knew the trails. We would float the river in the summer. We would ride our sleds in the winter down the hill. We always would kind of talk about that Army guy, and that was our meeting point. But it was interesting, I didn't understand Gold Star Drive back then. It really wasn't until 1975 when a group of us from Utah was invited back to Washington, D.C. in a leadership conference for a National Explorers Conference. Back then, it was a wonderful opportunity because we learned more about this great country. For those that have gone before us and those freedoms that we enjoyed, we saw national museums. We saw the Smithsonian, the monuments and the museums. But it was then that I got to first witness Arlington National Cemetery. At that particular point in my life, I gained a whole new plateau of what memorials are about for me. Several years ago, we put in our first memorial that I was involved in a small community in northern Utah, a community that many men and some that did not return involved in World War II and since. I had 3 uncles that their names are on that memorial. They served active in WW2, Korea, and Nam. But as we'd set the memorial about a week before the dedication, and we were getting ready to clean up and leave, one of the individuals whose name was engraved on that memorial sat on the bench and stared at that memorial where his name was engraved. I still cannot imagine the thoughts that went through this man's mind, to the experiences that he had, to the heartache, to the joy, to the sacrifices. And at that particular point, I became even further committed to make sure that every community that I would be involved in would have a memorial representing those that have protected our freedoms, but also, too, as the family members that struggled, that worried, that lost, that cried while their loved ones were serving. When Woodruff Wilson gave his second inaugural speech in 1917, he was talking about the importance of peace in the world and stability in the lives of people that want to be free. And I'd like to read one paragraph from that inaugural speech. He challenged us, he said, "Upon this as a platform of purpose and of action we can stand together. And it is imperative that we should stand together. We are being forged into a new unity amidst the fires that now blaze throughout the world. It is their ardent heat we shall, in God's providence, let us hope, be purged of faction and division, purified of errant humors, of party and private interest, and shall stand forth in the days to come with a new dignity of national pride and spirit. Let each man see that the dedication is in his own heart, the high purpose of the nation in his own mind, ruler of his own will and desire. I strongly believe his pledge to the citizens then of this great country is magnified by the individuals that I'm surrounded by today. As I witnessed the volunteers who gave so much to see this project redone, especially from Autoliv and American Monument, it was remarkable to witness this commitment and to those that donated. In just a parting word, I'd like to share something. We've got another memorial that's being dedicated later in a community north of us. And it was wonderful as this soldier sat by me a few months ago and penned out this following few sentences in just minutes. But I believe it really encompasses how I feel about those that have gone before and are currently serving and those that will serve in the future. Throughout history, U.S. service members had given their lives to protect our freedoms. No matter who falls, the impact is felt nationwide. Their families survive in our community to tell the story of freedom. Each branch offers a unique skill, working together for one unified purpose. May future generations strive to remember the dedication left before them. I say to you that are serving before and today, thank you very much, and may God bless America.
You know, I want to thank everyone for being here today. Our cemetery, not just Gold Star Drive, represents our community's history, which is a living history. I'm sure you all have been touched by someone who is interred here, a family member, friend, acquaintance, and in you, their memory lives on. If you walk around the cemetery, we have folks that represent the very first epoch of our city's history, with the grave of James Brown, who was tasked with the purchase of Ogden and the surrounding area from Miles Goodyear, a trapper who claimed the land. We also have folks who changed the world with their brilliance and inventiveness. Some of you here may have heard of John M. Browning, the individual who invented a myriad of weapons, both military and sporting, including the BAR and the Colt 1911. He was a native of Ogden and is interred just a few rows over behind the gentleman standing at attention. Then we have individuals like Mr. Carl J. Norquist. If you look behind the gentleman over there, the couple over there, there's a simple marble marker. It's military, which says the 23rd Engineers, a horseshoer. That's all it says. But we must remember that person too. All these folks work together to make Ogden what it is today. This effort to remember those from World War I began at the end of that war and culminated in a similar ceremony as today, November 11th, 1921. The community came together to raise the awareness and funding to memorialize the falling, much as we have done over the last year to restore these memorials. I need to recognize those individuals who made today possible. You've already heard from Mr. Steve Krolak with the Scouts. He coordinated much of our program, as well as many of the Eagle Scouts projects in our cemeteries, not only here, but throughout. He also helped with the documentation and surveying of all the original monuments that were here, and the markers with their condition and status. The restoration of the missing trees, as well as the stars that he discussed, were because of Steve and his love and understanding of what needed to be done. Then we got to talk about Autoleave. We've had a gentleman here from Autoleave. I got to tell you, Stephanie and Josh, where are you? Over on the side there. I got to confess, it was through their ambition and commitment to this project that pushed it over the top, so we can meet the deadline of today and to complete the project. Those and others from Autoleave have volunteered their time and energy to the project to the point of guarding the concrete work that's here to ensure someone didn't damage it while it was still wet. They have volunteered on weekend days to work and complete the task as not to be in conflict with services here. Autoleave even went to the point of having one of their trucks go to Georgia to save us the money for shipping the granite monuments that you see here. A million thanks to them and all they have done for our project, as well as many others they have been involved in. Mr. Devin Taylor, who you just heard speak, American Monument has taken the project under his wings, as he has so many other veterans projects in the areas that his company serves. As he was alluding to earlier, a large monument is being installed up in Pocatello today for the veterans. Let me tell you something about Devin. He not only committed his resources as a corporate, but much of the physical labor that was involved here. Many of the holes that were drilled on this drive was Devin. He and his good friend Keith, I think Keith volunteered, came out and removed the old pedestals on a Saturday. And his sacrifice was even bigger when you realize he's a University of Utah fan and it was a home game that day. Another quick side note, as we have been at the cemetery, Devin is quick to get down and straighten markers of individuals that have been disturbed and return them to their proper position. I'll be talking to him and all of a sudden he's down on his knees pushing the marker back in place. Corey from his staff also has helped in so many facets. I believe he's in Pocatello today, representing American Monument. So many facets of helping us corral all the donations that we need for the installation, including Fastenal, who was great to donate all the hardware we needed. Or Jim or Mark here from Ogden Art Metal. You know, the cannonballs that you see here, and there'll be more cannonballs added at the other end, they generously supplied those, and they're always terrific to help out in the community. Bill Salerno of Salerno Architects, who puts up with me pestering him relative to the installation depth of concrete, the slump, the slope of the install, another great supporter. Is Hud Hayes here? Hud, I know Ron couldn't be here today, but Hud's from Staker Parsons Company, who were just terrific. They donated all the concrete here. We couldn't have done it without them. That was a huge, huge donation. And then, of course, Weber County Heritage Foundation. You know, every year we struggle to raise money for different things, whether it be the restoration of the Ogden High or the lime kiln or whatever the project is. They took this under their wings this year, and God bless them for helping us out. Connie Cox and Mary Galbraith, it wouldn't have happened. These things just don't come together. All that you see here was a half dozen, 8 people working terrifically hard. Then I have to relate, I'm especially thankful that night, 3 weeks before Halloween, when my wife and I ran out of daylight and we were laying out the measuring for the placement of the individual plaques in the dark with just light from the headlights of my truck. Here I am in the cemetery just before Halloween with wooden stakes and a mallet. I don't know how I would have explained that to the police. I'd also like to thank my wife for making the little cozies that you saw for the monuments, so thank you so much. And there's so many others I may have forgotten, but the list is extremely extensive. And today, let's not forget to thank those veterans, not only those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, but those who are here with us today and working towards our freedoms today. We do not think of those who are in some unknown valley in a country that we may have only vaguely heard of doing what is necessary for America and to create a better world. In the words of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, "Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. This is an unfortunate truth that we all need to remember. Thanks to those who stand for our protection." Now, if we would, we'd like to have the honor guard do a 21-gun salute, and then we will have taps, and then we'll retire the colors.